Happy Friday, LinkedIn. Welcome to Let's Build AI Skills with Nico. How you doing, man?
Doing well. How about yourself, Chris?
I am doing fantastic. We are at the end of August, my friend.
I know. Can you believe it?
I can't.
It
Only
gets snuck up.
right, like 17 days away from inbound. Uh, it's an exciting time to say the least. And that schedule over there has a bunch of AI, kind of as expected.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can help people remember, maybe some strategy related to all those cool AI tools and functionalities you're going to hear about. And so I'm really excited for this, this new mini series we're going to start today.
Same. I'm loving the idea behind this, and yeah, I saw so many. I mean, the thing is that for once, and I don't know, it just I couldn't justify the extra money, but for once it was like, oh, I wish I had gotten the premium just so that I could register for the court or for the talks ahead of time, because that day, and I forgot, even though I set myself an alarm for it, I didn't start registering for stuff until like 4:30 or 5 o'clock, and so much was already like, seats are already saved, seats are saved, can't get into this. I was like, all right, fine. So I missed out, especially on George's deep dive, which I'm hoping I could just like sit on standby or something outside the
Well,
doors
there
and
there may or
listen
may
through the
not
door.
be a an encore of that presentation. I've heard so.
Yeah,
Now it's like, okay, when is it going to be posted exactly? Like,
right,
but
right.
yeah, you actually you probably saved yourself a little bit of stress that day, since it was originally going to be 10 a.m. and then 11 a.m. and then HubSpot was down, and then yeah, so I think it opened up to like one or two,
Wow.
and so yeah, the beauty of doing this show the way I do it, like kind of like, embrace the chaos, embrace stuff
Hmm.
like that's going to happen. I scheduled the show to kind of unbox inbound that day, and it was like 8 a.m. Then I realized I couldn't schedule anything till 10. So I was like, all right, I'll put it over there. And then Xfinity started doing stuff in the neighborhood,
Oh
and
God.
HubSpot went down. I'm like, all right, 4 p.m. Like, let's wait for everything to settle, and we'll run it. And I might be talking to myself, but maybe somebody can get some value from the commentary. And it was interesting to kind of go through it, kind of share the thoughts as I went through it. But a lot of stuff going on, man.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I know that people are getting tired of the acronym AI being thrown around with like every single sentence. That's it is what it is. Like, this is people really need to understand that this is to infrastructure what the internet was. So as much as you never stopped hearing the word internet, or you never stopped hearing the word smartphone, or you never stopped hearing the word computer, right, or laptop, like all of these things that are just quintessential to business, right? So this is just another aspect of it, and it's not just, it's literally everywhere. Like, if you saw the what was it, CES Expo this year, just every single appliance device, if it had electricity, it had AI incorporated into it, right? So
Yeah,
um, yeah, it's going to be. I'm really interested in seeing what HubSpot's going to roll out. I just posted yesterday in this past week about the fact that I don't see how their dev team is not leveraging it in some way in order to help them code stuff, because you're putting out like 5 to 6 new features, and we're not talking about small little things. Some of these things are really heavy hitting features, and it's happening daily, right?
yeah,
There's no way you didn't hire that many coders. I know you didn't hire that many people. Like, you know how many people that would take? That's insane. So you go
right.
from having like one big or two big feature releases a month to having nearly a big feature release every week. Like, I know you're doing something right. And then ran
Yeah.
into a post on Twitter yesterday that featured an 8-year-old girl building out an entire environment with a chatbot that like mimicked what a GPT environment looks like in 45 minutes.
Wow.
An 8 year
Yeah.
old.
Yeah. Some of the the most inspiring stories. I mean, the first time it really started to click for me and how powerful, when Dartmash was sharing some stories about his 12 or 13-year-old, just building complex stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's possible. And, hopefully we can ground ground you a little bit through this show, help you understand the difference between theory and practical application, and kind of cross that bridge. And I'm excited,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe I'm getting a little, free consulting through this mini series that we're about to do. But we've picked a specific company um, that we're gonna kind of show like what building, go to market from scratch looks like, with support of AI, right? Let's say like, because eventually I'm not going to add those last four words on with support of AI, right? Like you said, it's just going to be, oh, you're building the GTM. Of course,
Yep.
that includes AI, right? Of course,
Yep.
you're getting powerful support from this tool set. I'm excited, man.
It's I don't know. It's like I say, it's something that is just part of the infrastructure at this point. It's part of, well, not necessarily part of what you do on a daily, but close to that. You know what I mean? It's definitely something that I think is just going to be everywhere. I just saw an article this morning. Dell's server sales are up like 80%, something like that. Right. Nvidia's sales are up unexpectedly. Like they were projected to hit, I think, like 24 or 26 billion or something in sales for the quarter. They had 30 or 32.
Wow. So is this from
So
like they didn't expect it to hit this quickly,
it's,
or
yeah, at the volume. They didn't
yeah,
expect this much volume this quickly. But businesses are, they've learned from past mistakes. If you don't evolve and you don't pivot and shift quickly enough, you're going to get left behind. And what's odd to me is Wall Street's reaction to this, in that, they're saying like, oh, well, it's only some like big companies that are really helping to jump those numbers. And it's like, but Microsoft and OpenAI and Anthropic and Google are not going away. So when you
right,
say that there's four companies or like big companies doing it, they are massive companies that are not going anywhere.
yeah,
So yeah, to your point, it's, and what I love about this is that, yeah, you're going to learn a lot about how these models interact with data. You're going to learn a lot about how you can get them to interact with data on a different level than what you've seen out there. We're definitely going to be doing not necessarily more advanced prompting, but we're going to get into prompting, and then also we're going to talk about the interaction and how the interaction is far more important than the initial.
awesome, yeah. I'm excited, and a little bit of a backstory here. And if you could pull up, I don't know if you have ready, like kind of the outline or plan of the
Oh, sure.
different things that we're going to hit. So recently, I my old stomping grounds, I grew up in the reference materials science space, right? And I'm getting back involved there, and I've been asked to come help grow a specific division of a successful, e-commerce business in a place where e-commerce is still not very much a thing. Um, and we're going to go through, this process of building based on, what we talked about last week. We got these different responses from the AI tools. And we kind of, again, taking some different outputs, and then as the human being, bringing them together in a way that makes sense for what we're trying to accomplish, right? Humans still involved for a while. Um, so as you maybe we can recap a little bit, like take us through it, and like what resonated with you, so well to say, oh, this makes sense to, do some shows on this exact flow.
So what really resonated with me is the idea, real from the ground up, in that, like, okay, well, we should do what most people are kind of doing already, right? There's a lot of solopreneurs out there, and there's a lot of people that are interested in terms of, okay, but how do you leverage this stuff? And in order to encompass both of those things, tell a story about it, and to be able to get the teaching across and fold it all into CRM work, it really just fell into this old house kind of format where it's like, okay, well, we'll start with, the base clay in the first week, and we'll massage it and manipulate it and start getting it, somewhere. And then as weeks, pass on, we'll just keep adding to it, keep changing it, keep modifying it until it gets to, what we want to do. And I think what really intrigued me about the output was the fact that it automatically split up the job. It automatically split it into, I'm going to do this, you do this, and together we're going to accomplish this goal. Right. So it didn't treat it as like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take care of everything. You just need to give me this and I'll do this. It was definitely more of like okay, well, here's what I can do, which is the really quick stuff. Right. But then here is what you can do, which it can't. Right. So like, what makes this a great two-step process is what we already know in terms of how we work with businesses. When you get started, you have that onboarding paperwork, you have some type of questionnaire, you've got something from who you're working with that tells you a little bit more in depth about them, their position in the market and that kind of stuff. And then you have all the external data about them. You have whatever social posts there might be, public information available, blogs or articles, and their website. So you can take all of this external data and take the internal data from your interview, and then we can start meshing it together to start actually looking at like, okay, what is this whole company altogether? What does it actually represent? And for me, I usually take that and just build a mock company. And I've been seeing this more and more. I know we talked about it a couple times. I've been seeing it get leveraged more and more lately. And it's one of the greatest ways to work with a client because you have infinite access to them, technically.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
and I think like for me what comes to mind is so often like words like or phrases like go to market, uh you know, actually that one specifically, like having to explain that to people in the face of like sales plans and sales strategies and marketing plans and kind of translating it, it's hard to not make it feel like it's boiling the ocean when we're
Right.
coming from a place of, okay, our goal is twice as much as last year. What's the sales plan? Okay, we sold 50 last year. We got to sell 100 this year. Like, go do it. Right. So that's where we're starting to be strategic about it when we haven't ever been before, to actually put a go to market strategy in place, so that all the teams align and we're actually strategic about how those extra units are going to get sold. Right. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff that companies haven't done before. So I'm always looking for help and insights on different ways to present this challenge to leaders, right? So seeing it,
Mm-hmm.
break it up like this and not say like, oh, first of all, not saying like, oh, this one person or oh, this one company is going to be able to do everything for you, right? That's not realistic. Never works out.
Right.
Uh, but two, you don't have to do it all yourself, right? So where can you get the help where you need? Where do you need to give the process time because you're the one who knows everything as the founder of the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't delegate this whole thing, right? Figuring out ways to explain this in using different words and, different like ordering of concepts. I'm always looking for new ways, and like, so I'm excited to move through this and help people with that.
Definitely. Yeah. And I very much, I'm looking forward to people just seeing the, raw live example of like how, not necessarily like how easy, but just how useful it is, like how much leverage you can get out of it. So I've started by basically what I call like priming the conversation, which is essentially just telling the model, hey, this is what we're going to be working on, and this is essentially what we're going to be doing, like just giving it some context. And even with the minimal context that I'm giving it, that we're going to be working on this project that is all about, represent this project that we're going to be working on. The basics of it is that I need Harry to take on the persona of the company, and then just ask it, hey, what do you think about this plan? What's awesome about Harry is that he comes back to say, look, I'm not only going to do that, but these are the ways, like, this is what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to, do a company overview, then I'll look into the position of the company. All of the things that I would want it to do anyway, it's already thinking like, yeah, this is the stuff that I need to do in order to take on this persona. We don't necessarily need it to go this in depth, but we can. I want to say, I hope this works. Yesterday I was fooling around with, and Chris knows about this only because I was messaging him. I was fooling around with creating a method to do research on companies. I've done this before based off of links, but it wasn't quite as in depth as what I've been doing lately. And so what I did was I kind of baked it into a memory for GPT so that it understands what this process is supposed to be. So whenever I use the term research links, research these links, or do some research, it should understand that it's supposed to go through this 5-step process in order to actually complete that task. You can see that I've done the same for some other stuff, for knowledge base articles and responses for emails to people. I think memory is honestly one of the more powerful capabilities with GPT now, simply because of the fact that you can have like hotkey commands essentially.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay. Let's so you can go back to that tab or that chat. Yeah, because I think what's interesting to note here is I love the word you used, priming. Confirming that you're on the same page as the AI for what you're about to ask it to do. Like, it's so easy, like, for us to come in and say, "Hey, I need a go to market strategy for this company or this kind of company. Like, give it to me." Right? And it's going to give it to you based on the knowledge it has. When you ask it in the way that you did, it's like allows for confirmation. Like, when I say this, I think this. When you see it, what do you think? GPT or Hub Helper Harry, right? And that confirmation, even when we're talking with the AI of creating common language from the beginning, right, is crucial to getting what you want, out of this process.
So
And
this
so,
process is different from what I've actually had it memorized. It kind of, I had wondered about this, whether customized GPTs could do this, because whether or not they're linked to the same memory function, let's say.
okay. So when I think prior to now, whenever I've thought of Hub Helper Harry, and I know that I know the kinds of things that people go to it for is generally like HubSpot platform help or specifics, like tool fixes or things like that. We're asking it strategy, related questions. Where is it all coming from? The wider OpenAI GPT, or is there strategic elements of HubSpot content brought into here as well?
So it's a little bit of both. The base model is the like base GPT-4 model, and then which has its capabilities. So it has data interpreter, it has web capability, and it also has Dolly, so it can generate images for you. But the upside is that it's also loaded with pretty much the entire HubSpot knowledge base. I have to do some updates to the APIs, but other than that, pretty much the entire knowledge base is in there. I update on a monthly basis, so I do apologize to people. It is extremely difficult at this point with how many updates are being made to do this on a weekly basis. especially with the process that goes into it. However, yeah, having both of those things combined allows you to ask HubSpot-based questions against whatever the data is that you're working with, and to get that HubSpot-centric answer to it. So you can always ask, like, in HubSpot, how do I do this? Or does HubSpot have a method of doing this? Or what is the HubSpot custom code in order to get this action to be performed?
Okay. So
As opposed to being able to, like, you could ask a regular GPT, like GPT 4.0 model or something, but that assumes that it knows the answer. It assumes that it can find the answer somehow, and it may not be the right answer because it may not search the KB for it.
right. Okay. So what I'm hearing is like, while the strategy and advice might be coming from 4.0, it's very easy to say next, like, okay, tell me how to do that in HubSpot, or like in the same chat, because we're that context is so close and available to us.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So I want to cut out some time, and because let's see.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time not digging way too deep on some of this stuff. So we'll do our best, folks. But there's a lot of nuance and fun stuff to think about and try as you start playing with this stuff.
Perfect. Okay.
Are you hearing a lot of background noise on my side?
On your end, yeah, almost like a radio's on.
It's just a vacuum, no big deal. So I'm
Okay.
gonna let you go for a little bit.
All right. So in building out this process, I also wanted to get a tool that could easily grab all of the URLs that I need, because I want it to learn everything about XRF. And so in order to do that, I wanted to read everything about it. So I grabbed this plugin, which is just URL extractor for Chrome. And it's quite literally, you just click the plugin and it extracts all the URLs from that page. And it grabs everything, from the nav bar that you could do. Grouped by domain, you could go through all of this stuff, but this is really just a quick exercise to show you that you're able to grab just a chunk of stuff, throw it back in here. Yeah, it understands as links. That's what I like about GPT, is like it accepts your faults. No, if it's you're not doing it the right way.
Either way, there's clearly no excuse for the salesperson or BDR to show up to a call without
Right.
knowing something about the business.
Okay. So you can see basically it's going through each link on the site. Should be for production. Inspection. Now, if you wanted to, let's see. I want to see if it's going to do something it's supposed
And
to.
again, I like connecting the dots, as we know that, when people are doing research, when buyers are doing research, they're increasingly using ChatGPT and tools like it. So some of these questions, if we're having a hard time answering them here, just like for SEO purposes, like better organization of the website makes it easier for Google to understand what's on the page. Same kind of things apply here. So if we have trouble, if the robots have trouble understanding what you do as a business and who you serve, that basically means there's no chance in hell that a human buyer is going to be able to figure that out either.
Right.
And we know that not everybody wants to call you to solve that gap. So this is super interesting to see, because what I anticipate is kind of our goals are to take this to a more relational approach to achieve growth, right? We've done a good job to capture like the transactional gap in the market. Like just make it, I know what I want. Just let me go buy it. I don't want to talk to a sales rep. I don't need to talk to a sales rep. I need analyzer number 5. Like, don't make me call somebody to get it, right? Just let me go check out online like I can in my personal life. So we've captured that through an e-commerce store. Not a ton of content, not a ton of education on there. Like, so understanding where we are to help understand how far we want to go is, what I would hope to accomplish through this kind of building out the GTM for this next level of growth for the business.
Oh, that's right.
And just for reference, so those reference materials, that last link, it's going to be that's the business unit that I'm helping with. That I've recently started helping with. So I was going to ask, like, I'm wondering if it could just survey the site and understand what the different business units are for the company.
See, it's weird that it has that's one thing I do need to figure out is for the search command. That's the only command that it gets stuck on. Where it really like it does this pause where I'm not quite sure if it's a logic aspect of it, or if it just doesn't want to do it. I'm not entirely sure. But it has trouble doing like multiple like links one after another, and it's weird because I had it working perfectly yesterday, but I know that there's been like 8 severe errors between yesterday and today on the server, so I have no idea if it's linked to that. It's, so it really shouldn't have. Yeah, it shouldn't have an issue with that, unless let's see, unless
Yep.
there's something on the site itself that is like keeping it from being able to read the site. That is a possibility. But let's see. Okay, so just that, like, let's say we've got just some base information, right? And we can take what we got from the actual web search here.
As I've said in some other episodes, I really need to find a way to put an on-air light outside the
Oh,
door,
oh,
outside the
gotcha.
office.
Yeah. It definitely helps. Okay, so we're just going with like the basics, and honestly, I can let you know that between now and next week, I am going to finish the process of getting all the site data, and we'll probably end up. I won't redo this between now and then. I'll redo it next time so that we can see what the difference is between this initial strat and what the updated strat looks like. But this is just straight out the gate, looking at what the primary markets are, looking at key segments. Now, this is, I mean, it's interesting. You get value prop, marketing channels. What I want though is to develop this GTM.
Can we say
efforts.
specifically for the reference materials division, or is that asking too much
Sure.
here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So now I get to know, from your perspective, let's say, um, how you feel the GTM would be. So now I can just talk to you as if, right? And I don't have to have this conversation in terms of, okay, let me go have it go look at this and then come back. There's not as much of a like third party aspect to it. It's just a straight up, now I'm just talking to client per se. Um, as you know them, how well does this line up?
So let's start the previous answer,
Okay.
uh, if we can. Right. So it's interesting. Um, the interesting dynamic here is we have basically a platform provider, which has like, if you need this equipment or you're in material science and these industries, like we can provide everything you might need, from service to training to the actual products. Since the products are front and center, a lot of the information, and this is like a time old, well, not time old, but as we ask our sales channels to be more flexible and better in digital spaces, there's this kind of push pull between what the manufacturer should be doing and what the distributor should be doing, and what the like. So a distributor's value props should not be the product value props, right? Like, so I noticed in places it was like there's things like affordable leasing options and easy to buy, right? Which is a value prop for the distributor or the value added reseller. But then in the same sentence, it was like fast analysis, right? And that's something that could be on any one of the manufacturer websites, because that's actually a value prop of the technology,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which I would be super impressed if we didn't run into that here. But these are the same things we run into when we're having these conversations, and why reputable partners start with this very strategic road mapping process to understand all the nuances. Like, unless you are crystal clear on your messaging and the organization of your website and your digital presence, like, we got to get to the brass tacks there, so that we don't get off track and create a plan, based on all the uh, based on all the manufacturing value props, if that's not going to differentiate you at all, right?
Right. I'd like to see what it looks like once we've given it some better scope.
And this is where, like, when we say humans involved, beginning, middle, end,
Mm-hmm.
right? What your second answer showed uh, is that until you're certain that the AI is focused on the specific section of the website, it's going to keep
Yep.
coming back. And those four competitors I saw for uh, for because it said as CEO of X or F company,
Mm-hmm.
those were four competitors for the equipment, like the pre-owned analyzer part of the site, um, and which we still have here, right? And there's a completely different set of competitors for reference materials, right? But this speaks to the challenge of, and why I'm very interested in going through this process. It's like we have this well-established platform where we know traffic is coming in. The risk if we focus on reference materials is that we start like confusing the rest of the platform or the other people coming in for analyzers, right? They don't
Mm-hmm.
care about the reference materials necessarily. We'd love for them to care because it should go with all the analyzers, but it's the difference between a $500 product and a $20,000 product, right? So as a business, if I want this, and usually we see this challenge, or I've experienced this challenge from the top, and why focus is important. Like you might be telling the board you want this specific unit, or the board is expecting this unit, this business unit to grow. But when that business unit only represents like 5% of the revenue, like good luck getting the resources you need to effectively grow that part of the business, because the whole infrastructure and existing resources are focused on the other 95%, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is highlighting how challenging this can be, right? And why a strategy is important, right? I can't just start throwing Google ads up for reference materials and then bring them to this site where the primary focus is the analyzers, right? At the end of the day, this is why you should ask for help as a leader. But yeah, it's this is why the strategy piece is important. And the more you rely on an external resource to create an effective strategy for you, the longer it's going to take, because the longer it's going to take, the more expensive it's going to be, because there's a lot of due diligence to be done, because they're not in your shoes. They don't know the industry the way that you do. There's a lot of stuff to move through to get to that same understanding. So the best case scenario is that you're moving forward together, creating some stuff, the whole building the plane as you fly it,
Yep.
analogy works, because we know we need results quickly. Like you want to get quick time to value, but we don't want to waste money either, right? We don't want to waste time. We don't want to waste effort. We want to do the stuff the right way. So all these things are kind of just flowing out of my mind right now. So
yeah, I mean it's very understandable as well. And to your point, it's like how are you doing this while controlling your channel in a way that isn't pushing off your expected market while still garnering the new market that you're after. It is always tough, like especially when you're known for one particular thing, and now all of a sudden you want to bring this other thing in, but you don't want to rub people the wrong way about it and make them think you're becoming a totally different company or something like that.
yeah, and this is representing the exact problem. Like we are having to course correct so much because the AI has no idea what the overall GTM is, right?
Got it.
So it's like as we're thinking about resource management and growth, right, for
Mm-hmm.
an organization, you've got this big GTM, whether it's documented or not. That's what's happening to be successful with the business. And then you're like, oh man, I really want this other unit to grow, right? And but we can't get the resources we need. It doesn't make sense to hire. So let's just grab an external agency to go help that unit only. And we're not going to bring the entire context of the business. It's like, let's just roadmap some stuff out for that unit. Let's just get to executing and expect good results. Like you find traps, you find obstacles all the way there because you don't have the context you need to help that piece of the business grow. Are you seeing like how are you, like, are you getting anything out of these? Like, are you seeing that kind of that challenge?
Um, I don't, but then again, it depends. Like I would say it kind of depends on what you're trying to accomplish. In other words, like, and I ran a test on this yesterday. because finally one of my portals got accepted for the beta on the AI lead scoring. And so I wanted to see what the AI lead scoring in HubSpot was like by comparison to like Harry's capability for lead scoring. And not that it's like a super high end capability. It's just like what's a language model's version compared to the language model being used in HubSpot, and or I should say just the model that's being used. The results from HubSpot were all right, but they didn't take into, like, oddly enough, it has access to all the portal data, but yet didn't take into account things like number of deals, industry, title, right? So there was a lot of like key elements, at least that I find that their salespeople find to be key elements that were left out of the automated version of it. Now, granted, it was looking at contacts from subscriber all the way up to SQL and trying to garner that data. It did a pretty good job, but not the greatest job, right? It would have been much more powerful to take the contact data, company data, and deal data, anonymize the hell out of all of it, shove it into a language model, and then ask it to interpret the inferences and find the connect the dots in order to draw up a better point table, a better lead scoring table. And then you just tell it based on a goal score of 100. Let's see the table as it stands based on whatever you want to base it on. If you want to base it on industry plus top revenue, if you want to base it on number of employees plus number of deals, like, you have all of that data to be able to then tell it how you want it to develop your lead scoring table, as opposed to, zero shotting it with HubSpot, kind of hoping for the best, or trying to figure it out for yourself, which is always the worst.
Yeah, no, I've definitely shared similar feedback, like, because I relate it to, like, in GPT or even in Claude now with projects, like all these things where you give it pre directions or pre information that, like, please draw from this every time. This should inform every answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I relate that to the property infrastructure of HubSpot, right? And what I've shared is, like, until you give me the ability to know exactly where this data is coming from, I can't use any of it, right? And the fact that you have this property infrastructure sitting right there, I'd love to be able to say, these are the 5 properties that when this prompt happens or I use this tool, these are the 5 properties that you're looking at, or these are the record type, like some kind of, I just need to know that you're not going outside of the portal when I don't want you to. And when we're inside of the portal, which parts of the portal? Because
Mm-hmm.
so much of this is focused on prospecting and sales that you're not looking at stuff like product history and deal history, when at the same time we're given the advice that is the easiest place to get the money.
Right.
So please include that in the AI summary, or especially the lead score. Like, if this person has bought from us 20 times, or this company has, and they have a new person coming in as a lead, let's consider that maybe in the score.
So this is where it becomes, again, goes into that second layer of becoming more powerful, that, like, okay, we have the, GTM strategy, or at least, what we feel to be a decent GTM strategy, so that we
Yeah, and
can
let's look
go
at
from, okay.
those uh the answer to this. Like, so craft a GTM strategy that doesn't disrupt your analyzer clients while achieving desired lead volume. Uh, so segmentation, like, you get into, like, okay, if you want to target this, then you need to target this.
Yeah.
You need to use tools that can target in the first
And
place.
this is again like
Soft cross selling. Oh, give it to me all day, Nico. I love that
so.
answer.
I do want to point out real quick, we're admins, we're longtime users. We're not going to be as impressed as some of this stuff as a first time user, as an end user, as somebody who just bought the product, as somebody who doesn't know anything about this, right? So, from a ground up perspective, I feel like this is very actionable, very powerful information that you definitely would have to hire out in order to get, or at least
Yeah.
read a bunch of books or watch a bunch of videos.
Right. And then the application of it, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, that answer to content differentiation is gorgeous. Uh, like the mention of cross selling,
Mm-hmm.
because this is where this leads you to. What we're probably going to do is create some kind of separate site that reduces any possible conflict because we want, you know, there's people that could buy that don't want to send people and then see all the other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like analyzer manufacturers, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? So understanding like there's some soft cross selling here, but the focus has to stay, you know, on the analyzers. That's what the site, you know, that's the main revenue driver. Um, but
Hands
just to
down.
set, go ahead.
No, hands down. And to your point, it's like you're able to then use the soft cross sell to start building up that customer base little bit, little bit, little bit. And after you've got enough, I'm not, I would love to ask it, be like, okay, like what's the percentage at which I should do the break off? Right? Like, what's the percentage you feel is good enough? Not that, it's going to know better than you will, but you could even say, what's the percentage on average according to industry standard where we should break off from the main site and start directing traffic to a dedicated site, right? So you at least have
Yeah.
like some idea, right? Again, the whole thing being ideation, being not having to shoot in the dark when it comes to answering a lot of these questions.
Right. And what comes to mind there is like even asking it for signals, not even necessarily percentage, but like what things should I be looking for to say, okay, not ready yet, or let's do it? Like, is there still confusion? Is there no way to do this without confusion? Right. That's
Mm-hmm.
an okay answer. If it's true, then we need to pivot a lot faster than expected, right? We're just going to
Yep.
keep running into a brick wall. And that stuff happens all the time. It doesn't matter how much you throw at it if it's confusing the market on what's going on.
Yep.
So this is really cool. I'm excited to keep going through this. And because even like, and again, is the value of using a HubSpot specific tool. It's like finding that balance. It's like, okay, you don't even have HubSpot. You don't have any, you have spreadsheets. So what
Right.
you're asking to do, you don't have the tools to do that. So if you are serious about wanting to grow 7 different business units at once, and, you know, let's talk about it's giving you the tools like, okay, you need to do, you need to segmentation, like
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, like, can we do that right now? If not, all right, that's where the tool comes in. So even as it kind of explains a strategy through the lens without trying to sell HubSpot, I see a ton of value there. Like
Oh yeah.
how much of the ecosystem can we just put this in the hands of the GSs like right now? Like how do we get this in the SOP for HubSpot? Honestly.
Yeah, and it's a great question, right? I hear the same thing from a lot of professionals all the time. And it's funny, like when the tech first started rolling out, one of the bigger things was, okay, well, how do we fold it into the business? And how do we like actually learn how to get something out of this? And the majority of like training people, the majority of like AI people that I would see were just like how to train your business on how to do it and how to train your employees on how to do it. And now one of the top markets is how to get your company to actually adopt it. Like just the like so many companies like hit and missed on how to train them because the companies themselves were like, don't know if we would really want to get involved in it anyway, right? So yeah, now the bigger aspect of it is just getting them to adopt it, getting the company to understand like how useful this is. And of course, it's a huge market disruptor, right? Because if you're saving time, time equals money. You're a time-based business because of service. So how does that start to work out, right?
Yeah, might want to change to value-based pricing in some spots.
And I really do. I believe that it is the same thing. I really do. If your business was offering a service and it was at a particular level and it's held at a particular and regarded at a particular level, I don't see why you can't make the switch and it be the same pricing, right? Because you're offering a particular service at a particular level of impact, right? And so it kind of helps out also in terms of like marketplace, right? Because if you're a solopreneur, okay, you're not going to be able to charge as much as the big dollar guys, but that's because you're priced within your availability, you're priced within your output too. And so it encourages you as somebody that's in the field and as somebody that's in the ecosystem, it encourages you to work harder to be better, because the better that you are, the more money you make naturally, as opposed to like having, we say that like American dream, like, oh, work hard and you get what you want. This is actually the means of doing that without the holdback of, oh, you won't level up because you're not at a certain point or because you didn't do Office Politics 101 or something like that. It'll just be value prop based, which I look forward
world
to.
That'll be.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because we're going to get into that for sure, because I'm sure there's going to be a pricing strategy section of this. And honestly, part of the hard part there is not only is it hard, it's so hard to figure out how you switch into that when you're basing all of your costs on hourly rates and this infrastructure where everybody's time tracking and all this stuff. But also now you have to sell a completely different offering to the CEO or the CFO that you can't just say like, okay, 5 hours in, I got 5 hours out, like done.
Right.
Like those are those are easier for them to approve and budget towards this, like, okay. And I do it all the time because I'm not playing that game, right? But I do have to be ready for the conversation and like, okay, what deliverables am I getting? Like when? Well, I wish I could just say like, when you guys are ready to get your shit together, that's when you get it, right? Because I can't do it without you.
Yeah.
But I can't say that. So it's this, understanding that it's hard for those stakeholders that you're trying to help. They've got to try and push this through. So as much everybody might be bought into the value, but when it doesn't work the way that everything else does budget wise, right? You got to figure out a way to work it in. And usually once you make that case, it's win-win-win because there's less admin work and we're just developing and we're moving forward. But it takes a minute to get there. So I'm going to be curious to get Hub Helper Harry's help with that.
Yeah.
That'll be a fun episode.
I want to, awesome. As you mentioned it, I'm like, I wonder what a language model thinks it should be.
Right. And it'll probably, again, I love it when it reminds us of the challenges. Like, oh, you think the same way a CFO I talked to yesterday thinks. Okay, that makes sense. Well, that's not going to work. So let's work through it. That'll be fun, man. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, and I appreciate you, sharing the knowledge. I think we're all learning a lot from this. And yeah, man.
Loving
Until next week.
Yep. Always seems like it's so far away.
I know, right? Hey, I'll get to daily. I mean, I was doing daily for a long time. That's tough. Yeah, it's fun though. And
I can imagine.
It's good to be able to share knowledge and help others share knowledge and, getting more people on board with AI is I'm embracing that part of the journey. It's coming whether we want it or not. And let's leverage it.
Let's do it.
Thanks everybody for watching. And until next week, when you're thinking about, it could be pricing strategies, could be different product offerings, like how to manage conflict with products, conflict with our sales channel. All of those things we're going to be working through. But on your side, let's find some opportunities and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody.